So welcome to our today's session. So we have 3 days session where our interest is to introduce you to how you can write a successful grant proposal. And we just want to go direct to the preempt of the session that now situations across the world currently is that donor resources are declining very fast, and applications are increasing because of the need, and several organizations are being registered almost on a daily basis. Therefore, there's a very intense competition right now for what you call the donor funds. And therefore, the concept of quality proposal is very key, and for you to succeed, because several proposals go there and then they get declined. This is the pitfall we seek to help you to overcome in this particular course, such that at the end of these sessions, you will be well acquainted with the critical key areas that you need to factor in when you want to make what you call your application be a grade A. So just straightforward onto the point, we want just to look at what are the best practices in writing what you call the grant proposal. We shall bring a brief review on exactly what you need to put into consideration, what are the best practices that you need to consider when you want to come up with your grant proposal. So the first thing that is very important is to know, you know, the history of your donor. So that's the first one that you have highlighted here. Know the history, best practices in grant proposal, that we need to know the history of the donor. Now, in regard to the history, what do you need to consider? There are several things that you must put into consideration here. The first one is get to know the kind of projects that they have funded previously. You need to know the kind of projects that they have funded previously. And if possible, you can go to their website, and if at all they have uploaded some of the proposal there, you read and contact the very organizations that they funded. Now, when you contact that organizations, you are going to be so much concerned about what is their mission, what about their vision, and probably what about their reporting requirements. So this is very critical for you. That's why the history is very key. That's the first step that you need to know. What do they fund? Because we shall have a lot of what you call requirements for you to align yourself. There will be a need for you to align yourself and your proposal and your organizations with your donor. So now that's why we need to know what you call the history of the donor as the first inquiry. Remember, we are supposed to do research about the donor, and that is where you collect the information about the history. So number 2 is the proposal writing is supposed not to be one-man affair. You need to have what you call consultative program with your team. So we normally recommend what you call having team approach. You need to have a team that you have dedicated that will be responsible for writing the proposal. These teams consist of specialists in your organization, and probably people in finance must be involved there. Perhaps people in the procurement departments are also supposed to be involved in this particular team. So I will be talking about what is this team requirement. So what we are saying here is that you need to get the views of each and every person that's going to be involved in this process. And even the target group, the people that we are going to developing this proposal for, we need to get their views and bring in their views to compiling our grant proposal, because this is supposed to be a participatory approach involving all the key stakeholders. And perhaps at this particular preliminary stage, we will be expected to even map out the key problems with these stakeholders, and probably It is also the stage where we need to engage the reviewers, because most of the proposals are based on the RFP. So what will be expected of is, you already know they have put on application for you to make. So you can contact them. And that contacting them is very key. I'll emphasize on that particular point where you are making inquiry, and even the cardinal rules that you need to factor in when you are contacting the donor organization. So now, the next part here is the best practice is to include what you call comprehensive solution and what you call the success evaluation criteria. Yes. So you are expected to bring in what is the need and how will you be able to evaluate the success of the proposed solutions that you want to forward to the donor so that they be funded. Remember, the critical component is, are what you're proposing feasible? Is it something that can bring change to the organization? This is very, very key. And that's, we're just going briefly. And probably we also need to use what you call images, pictures, and graphics to just brand uniquely when we are going to present our proposal to the donors. So this is the requirement that at least present your organizations as having potentials and capability to deliver the proposed project that they are forwarding. And then if possible, we need to be very much be honest. Now, what we are trying to say is that donors are looking for credible partners so that can assist them achieve their objectives, because remember, they have specific objectives that they want to achieve. So they want to use your organization to be able to reach your specific objectives, and you must be credible. They will be assessing you during what you call the evaluation based on your credibility. So anything that you make, any claim which cannot be supported, you have to try to avoid it as much as possible, because of that situation which will compromise your credibility. And then we cannot be able to, after we have already written the proposal that we are going to write, we don't need to forward it to the donor's website or upload it before at least undergoing what we call thorough review. So select competent team to perform for you the review. That is the stage where we are going to omit unnecessary mistakes. And then you ensure that you recheck the RFP to confirm that all the questions that they requested there have been comprehensively answered. Because remember, during the review stage, what will be happening is that their team of experts will be given specific sections to review and award you marks. So if perhaps one section you have not comprehensively tackled, then definitely you are not going to score highly in that section, and that may compromise you getting the overall marks to be lower. So that's why we at least need to do what you call the recheck. These are now what we are looking at, the best practices when we are going to start writing our grant proposal. So now, what has been there previously? What has been the whole trick or the whole approach of writing grant proposals? Now, organizations have been writing perhaps one grant proposal and sending it to several donors, hoping that perhaps one of the donors will respond positively. That is an old practice, and we need to avoid it as much as possible, because it's not the way things are supposed to be done. Another one has been copying grant proposal from samples in the internet and then trying to forward it or trying to connect it with yours so that they be almost the same. That particular kind of approach is not working. Yeah, because if you are going to be compromised on what you call originality of your idea, they may even end up realizing that you copied some of the section, which means you are already dishonest on plagiarism. It is very key, and that one will automatically knock you out during what you call the review stage, if perhaps you have plagiarized your work. Okay, failure to build good relationship, that simply means refusing to contact the person that you have been assigned to under what you call the donor organizations. we have to contact them so that they also will be able to see that we have a lot of interest in doing things the right way. So that's why that building that relationship is one of the emerging critical components of increasing your rate of success. Now, this part of hiring people so that they write for you proposals in another country or in somewhere else is no longer working, because this particular person perhaps is not in the real contact with the target group. Because remember, it is the situation of the target group that we must be able to explore very well. And often you realize that there's proposals that are being developed by those you call consultants, they hardly go through well unless you are thoroughly engaged and involved in the process. So it simply means this is an affair of the organization itself. And the team that are involved as the employees must be thoroughly engaged in every step of coming up with a competent and comprehensive proposal that will see the light of the day. Okay, so what is now, therefore, what are we supposed to get involved as we are going to start saying yes to the grant writing process? So these are now some of the approaches that we are going to adopt. Leaving the old practices, we are going to talk about the new approaches that we recommend. So these new approaches are this. Let me just try to improve my sense of visibility here. Yes. I don't know, I have tried to increase. Yes. So now, yes, now the new approach is this. Try as possible to build very close relationship with your donors. Don't bore them with questions every now and again. When you have to make a call, write all the questions down and contact your project manager in that donor organization. At least take you through. And as they take you through, even record the responses so that you will not continue going back to them several times. Now, this preliminary contract before we write proposal only reflects that we have a lot of interest to do things the right way. And that's why it is highly recommended for us to do what you call this level of engagement. Okay. And possibly we have to engage what you call the target group, the people we want to change their situation. Let's try to engage them. We can even put them in what you call focus group discussions. As they bring in their views, we take videos, and at the same time we shall upload. For instance, that we cannot be able to justify the problem. When the problem is very unique, and because remember, problems require a lot of statistical data to be able to justify it. But sometimes you may find that this problem is very unique, and perhaps we don't have several major documentations to support it. Therefore, the target group will be the key. We shall be able to collect their views, take videos, or when they tell us how that problem has affected their livelihood, has affected their growth. And as I talk, and I try to even come up with how they can solve the problem, we record all those. At the same time, we are going to provide the link to the donors. Okay. So finally, we have to have what we call a grant management plan. This is key. At the beginning of the year or after a period of even 2 or 3 years, we develop what we call the grant management plan, how the entire process of grant making is going to be conducted, and possibly all the links and relationship involved and responsibility within our team. We shall assign the responsibility on each and every staff that are involved in the grant process. And then don't ignore to have a place where they can verify your presence. That simply means a good and conducive website is very critical in this case. Okay. So now that comes as to looking broadly into the best practices, what we need to get involved in, and how we shall be moving forward. Because remember, we want to build a culture. And this is a culture of doing things the right way. This is a culture of ensuring that we get things right the first time to avoid a lot of duplications and errors. So I will begin off to just bring a brief definition to a grand proposal. Your proposal is your story of your CBO, NGO, and perhaps the faith-based organizations, and why your project is important. That is what a grand proposal is in summary. It's a story, and you have to learn the art of storytelling here. You must be a very good storyteller, which can be able to captivate the audience of your readers. If you never got involved in telling stories, you are going to be expected at least to develop that art of storytelling when you begin to describe your target audience. Okay, so we are simply saying that this is our story, where we are now, what we propose to do to solve this particular emerging problem, and how that particular problem perhaps is affecting the target group. We shall look comprehensively into what is the critical rationale of proposals, which is what we're calling as the need statements or the problem statement. So now, each time you create a grant proposal, you will state how your nonprofit can be best to be the one to solve the problem. This is like a resume for people looking for a job. So this is the organization itself is looking for funds. The way you write your resume and highlight your key competencies, which makes you be the best suitable candidate, that is the exact approach you have to give to grant proposal. Why are you the best one who can be able to implement this particular project? Yes, so it is going to be one thing that we are going to must come out very, very clear as we are going to develop the proposal itself. So, okay, key components of a grant proposal. Now we are just moving to what you call, what are the areas that must come out? And from the areas, it simply means we are almost starting now to start with the parts. We are talking about the parts of the grant proposal. So the first one here is what about the identified need? The need or the problem is the reason why we are starting the proposal in the first case. So this particular need must be properly mapped. And we are going to talk about how do we come up with a grade A need statement or problem statement. What must not be omitted. When the reviewers are going to mark, what do they look at? So that they possibly consider that that is an excellent piece of work, and therefore they are ready to engage with you. This is very key, because without it, definitely we don't have a proposal to bring. We don't have justification for writing this grant proposal. Okay, so how will your project address the need? There must be a link between the need and the solutions that we are coming up with. So this is also going to be a component on its own, where we shall be talking about our proposed ideas, our proposed way by which you can be able to solve this particular need. And remember, we have engaged the audience, we have engaged the target group. So it's coming out from them very, very clear. And since we are the expert in this, we shall be able to engage them clearly to be even prioritize these particular needs, so that we only solve perhaps what will bring the greatest return. So the ways, how is our organization so unique? Because we shall have a part where we are going to describe our organization in the introduction. The introduction sections will only highlight why are we the best? What is our mission? And remember, when I'm going to come up with our mission, they will also check our mission in our website. And when they are checking, they're checking for what you call coherence. Are we the same? What about them? Because remember, they are using us as a channel by which they are going to create change in line with the objectives that they want to meet during that in their strategic plan. So it is us to support them to be able to meet their strategic plans. And therefore, we must be able to be properly aligned with what we do. And that's where at least they will have a lot of interest that we are similar, you are similar. How you will utilize funds responsibly and possibly the mechanisms for accountability is also very, very key. And it's a section on its own, which we will talk about monitoring and evaluation. And at the same time, we shall have a department for a section on its own on how the project we intend to bring durable results. The current emerging content in the grant proposal is that you must clearly explain to the donor the durability or sustainability of your program. If at all funds have already been given, what mechanisms are you going to put in place to increase chances of your projects having durable results in the future? That's going to be very, very key and very, very critical for us to realize. So these are generally a summary on what is going to be there in our component of our grade proposal, which simply means we are going to have the needs statement or the so-called problem statement. We shall have the introduction of our organizations and what we do, our missions, our visions, and critically, our accomplishment is very critical because remember, it is an assessment of our credibility. That section is very important because that's where they are going to assess our level of integrity. Is the claims we make are authentic and can be substituted in even in our website and even a reference from some of the people who have funded us. Yeah. So is it something that they can also be ready to partner with us? Okay. So they will look at it in that particular section. Okay. So those are some of the sections that we shall talk more so that we get it right. By the time our proposal is going to be reviewed, they definitely know that we did a thorough research, we properly engaged the target group, and it's not one man sitting down to come up with a proposal somewhere and then forwarding to us to fund. Right. Okay, that's not the way. So we looked at what you call, that is the section on the format of grant proposal. So this is the format. So we want to only begin with what you call the proposal summary. Normally it can be half a page, but it must contain all the key areas of the final document. Yeah. And now that key areas will be describing us as the NGO, at the same time highlighting the problem statement. To what extent has that problem been there? And how many people have been affected? And what about the past interventions in order at least to alleviate that problem? And why have they not been successful? Now, what is the unique innovation are you going to bring forth so that you can be able to solve this problem once for all? That must come very clear, because remember, it's not only you that has seen this problem. It has been seen by other people over the past. So you must be able to tell us about to what extent has it been, the people who came over, like the government, other key players of development partners, to what extent have they tried to solve this problem? And why is it that they have not been successful? Must come out very clear so that you bring in the element of your innovation and creativity. That is going to give you a mark in terms of looking at you as a very credible and competent organization to solve this problem. And that is going to be very, very key. So now we move next to this part. And remember, these are sections that we shall be discussing one by one. I'm just bringing what you call the format and the key highlights. So we shall take how the summary is supposed to be written. We shall take about section 2, which is history or mission, which is supposed to be even one paragraph. The history and the mission. Now, this is the introduction of our organization, brief history and major milestones of our organizations. What have we accomplished? The projects that we have successfully implemented. And remember, when we are talking about the projects, they also counter-check in our website. Do we take photos? And they are there in the website. So that's why the concept of website is very key. And remember, both website and all your social media platform must have some element of being the same. Anything that you do, even if it is free delivery of supporting, you must take good photos and then you update those as into your what you call social media platform. The capacity, our capacity, the organizational capacity is also going to be a section on its own, where you should highlight your past accomplishment and why you are the real candidate for this funding. Okay, so then needs problem. This is very critical. This is what we say that without it being properly captured, we don't have a reason why we need to request for funds. The needs statement or the problem statement. I will tell you how to write it and how to start and even how to end it. How to give proper support to every statement, every claim that you make. What are the various ways of making what you call the claim and supporting the claim? Because without proper supporting the claim, that is going to be considered as something that is not authentic. Good. Okay. Let me see what people have said. Okay. So as we come, perhaps tomorrow, we shall take particular section by one, and then now bring in the points with what you call practical samples on how perhaps it can be graded to be even scoring in problem statement, because this normally, when you check at the past, it's normally 10 marks. How can you be able to get 8 or even 9? Okay, so after that need statement, we come to now this project itself. Sometimes it's called the project narrative. The project plan, how will you go about it to solve the problem? This is where you explain your methodology very well and program dosage and your key staff who will be involved in the entire implementation process. Now, what will be the role for the key partners also you bring in forth in this particular section of this is the most important part. And our target here is how are we going to be like to solve the problem? The solutions we shall provide when you find us. That's the section they will be so much interested in looking at. It is the part with the highest score. That's the part with the highest score in every grant proposal. And therefore, a lot of project management concepts and principles are going to be applied in coming up with this project narrative section. So we shall be looking at that section very critically, one by one. Now, the goal, the objectives and the outcome. A good rule to follow here is to make your goals very smart. They must be specific, measurable, and attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So after that, we move to the evaluation part. So we'll write about our evaluation plan. How do we intend to put in monitoring, an effective monitoring evaluation system in the organization once we have been funded? And how will we be able to collaborate with what you call the donor organization and any other stakeholders like the project beneficiaries? What will be the level of involvement so that at least some heightened level of accountability and transparency can be seen during this process of conducting an M&E. So we need to have an M&E plan for the project that we are proposing to the donor. Then we come out to this section that normally give people the most difficult part, and this is developing the budget. Now, we shall summarize it. That's the same I'm saying there. The budget is one of the easiest part. The only thing that we need to do is this, like an extension of our project plan, because in the content of the plan that we shall develop in the project narrative, every plan section will involve estimating what we require so that we come up with this particular section called the budget. And often we have a budget with project budget itself and perhaps the overheads. We divide it into two in that perspective, and it be detailed as much as possible with what you call the proper narrations to be able to justify the elements of those costs that we shall put inside what you call the budget. So we shall have a section on that where we are just dealing with what you call preparing project budget, and perhaps talking a bit about estimation methods that we will be expected in case that we don't have perhaps historical cost that can be able to justify this part of our budget. Okay. Then finally is the last section, which is sustained impact. What is your ultimate vision for what will be accomplished? Yes. How will you enhance that the project will continue bringing benefits to the beneficiaries long after the donor has already stopped funding you? Very, very key, and it will influence whether they tell you yes or no to this particular proposal that we shall send forth. So depending on the kind of proposal, currently we have various ways. If it's a government proposal, perhaps we shall have also sections of various attachments, because something like the project plan, you may be intended to have it on attachment. You can have section for attachment where you even have the budget in Excel. Yeah, and all these other comprehensive documents, the big ones in the attachment section. At the same time, you may be also, if at all you have some reporting data, like you have been reporting to your government on your performance, financial performance and reporting, you may be expected at least to have your audited accounts also being touched, if possible, but not all cases are applicable in that perspective. So sometimes you may not go to that extent. So let's look at now what are funders looking? What do we review when your proposal reaches the donors? First thing that they will want to establish is there a problem that needs to be solved urgently? And to what extent, or what's the magnitude of the problem? I'm actually requesting for people to mute so that we can be able to, our coordinator to mute for us those people whose backgrounds are making noise. Okay. Is there a problem that needs urgent attention? That is the first question. If they cannot go through and see the problem that require urgent attention, definitely your project will be put somewhere else, not in the place where people who need to be considered. Number two, is your proposed solutions said are feasible? Number three, if your nonprofit can be trusted to be responsibly manage the grant to implement the said proposed solution to the problem. That is now the third key that they will be looking for in your proposal during what you call scanning through. They scan through your document looking at, do we have an urgent need that require urgent attention? One. Two, are what we are proposing are feasible? And then is this organization the right one to be entrusted to manage this particular proposal? So scan through these three questions, they will either make an opinion whether they are going forward with reading the entire document or it is enough for them to just decline it forthright. So now that's why we normally try as much as possible to do it right the first time. Donors are looking for credible partners with a successful track record. Donors have an objective to achieve in line with their mission and vision. Therefore, they are in business to look for credible partners with similar objectives and interests, and who are properly aligned with their strategic key areas of what they are doing. And also, donors are very keen to fund projects that offer solution to the target group. So that problem must be properly documented elsewhere in other literatures. And therefore, we must be able to support that particular part called the problem statement with evidence elsewhere, from literatures, from other publications, and the literatures that you are using must be authentic. They must not be too long ago, like 5 years, 3 years. If at all you are quoting about your national census, then try as much as possible to use the latest document as much as possible. Okay. Okay. So now, I'm seeing someone is trying to call. Please don't call me because the internet I'm using is going to interrupt. Okay, so now before I go to the first initial step, which is concept note, I just want us to do some small engagement before I now introduce the concept note, which is like a preliminary document to grant proposal. So now I can be able to allow some level of engagement, please. You can either write your questions, or you definitely raise your hand so that we can give you a chance so that you ask questions. I'm seeing so many people have not joined the meeting. Almost 17 are waiting. Does it mean that our so many people were left out from our meeting? Okay.
Sir, can you unmute those making noise? Sir, can you unmute those making noise, please? Can you unmute those making noise, please?
Okay. Okay, let me try to unmute them. Let me see those without, please, you can unmute, you can, okay. Let me scan through. I think now everyone is okay. We are okay now, okay? So now, if you have any question, write the questions down. Okay. So everyone, right now, I think we have behaved well. Thank you so much for muting your proposals. Now I can be able to ask some few questions. Wanted some level of, we can engage ourselves a bit before I move, or I can simply move to the concept note. Now, sometimes it becomes a little bit expensive to develop a grant proposal because it takes a long process. It's also expensive. It involves a lot of engagement. And even sometimes you may be not aware whether the particular donor you want to take the proposals fund that area. So the best thing to do is to come up with what you call the concept note, a 2 or 3 page document. Yes, this 2 or 3 page document will be able to be like the entry between you and the donor. So the feedback you will get from the donor is going to be very critical in terms of modifying your grant proposal to make it become something which is very real and very practical. So, and that's why we need to come up with this concept note as one of the preliminary documents that one of the preliminary documents that is very key in soliciting for what you call the views of our donor. We have said that please don't write one proposal and forward it to almost 100 donors, expecting them to give you what you call feedback. Instead, if you want to give like that, please write a concept note and forward it to those 100 donors, expecting them to give you the feedback, because that is the first level of engagement. You are just trying to propose an idea and trying to make inquiry whether at least that particular idea is they are compatible with that idea or not. And therefore, we come into the component of a letter of inquiry. Can we be able to write a good letter of inquiry? And out from it, we use it as a basis of now building up our subsequent relationship with the donor. Uses of concept note. Why is it ideal for us to go this way of having some preliminary documents before we can be able to begin writing the proposal? Now, the letter of inquiry will assist us to get initial feedback from what we call our potential donors on their key areas. And in case they are funding our proposed idea, Then they will also give their comments on how we need to package that idea to fit their interest fully. And therefore, it becomes giving us what we call the first level of engaging with what we call our proposed donor, our prospective donor. You can use concept note to get feedback also from your internal staff. Remember, staff have points. They have engaged with what we call our target group. They know what the target group needs more. So, and there's idea that needs to come out from the staff themselves when we start having what we call the staff meeting and discussing about this program that we want to write. So the concept note can be used to solicit more ideas from what we call the team, your team, to assess what we call project feasibility. The team will have an opportunity also to brainstorm new ideas that will make our proposed project be a good one. And most importantly is that this concept note helps to clarify and organize ideas in some logical sequence. And remember, during this stage, we shall open up and seek widely the ideas of the staff with regard to what do we need to do with the problem. We diagnose the problem first, and after that, we come to our proposed way of solving it from the team themselves. Okay, so in the process, we shall have a lot of review to that idea, and we try to make it better by time. And that's why we are also emphasizing that this is what you are supposed to solicit from, give to different people that you expect that they can be able to support you. Yeah, it is not difficult to come up with it. It's very simple and very brief. And it has a very key highlight that must just only come out so that the particular donor will either tell you that we are not in this line. Okay, if at all we have to fund you, then it must be like this. So you take those suggestions into consideration when you are now going to build up what you call something that properly aligns with the interests and objectives of your prospective donor. So that's why going this concept note way is one of the what you call ideal way by which you can be able to network yourself with the prospective donors, as opposed to going the grant proposal way. Yeah, because if an organization just find a grant proposal completely written and everything is clearly written and you forward it to them, they will ask, did we ask you for it? What I'm trying to emphasize is that unsolicited proposals, we try to reduce as much as possible. Now, these are proposals that no one has requested you. They are not in offer, neither is it an RFP. And therefore, we try to only use concept note to do that kind of networking with our prospective donors as opposed to the grant proposal. So what is it that should be in the content of this concept note? Yeah, so the concept note generally, you just have what you call the funder's name, address, and the contact person, and your details must clearly in the first page, like the first page of it. Then we have the introduction of the organization that is making the request. And this, you must be able to talk so well about yourself. Is now the point where you are selling yourself to the prospective donor. Yeah. And probably the reason for making the request, the amount requested, and perhaps description of the project itself. So we shall be looking at samples of this. Samples of them are there in the book. So for those people who will have the book, you will have opportunity now to go over those samples in the book and try at least to align, because this is very key and it's very simple. There are very few sections that must come out very clear. One of it is the section on the need that we want to solve. That is where they will put a lot of emphasis. First of all, they're asking themselves, is there a need that require our urgent attention? So how you make that justification is going to be very key in you giving them an appetite to continue engaging with you further. Yes, good for that. So I think to that extent, we can have stop the recording, and then we can be able now to have our internal engagement. Okay, can you now, let me stop